Welcome back. It is your Feel Good Breakfast Show. It's Expresso on S3. We are in the month of October, and October is Mental Health Awareness Month. And just as much as we need to look after our mental health, so do leaders in any field. Mental resilience and accountability are just some of the qualities needed to be a good leader and make a difference for the common good. It takes a great deal of mental tenacity to not only become a leader, but to remain a good one. And here this morning to talk about his recognition of mental toughness within unforgiving environments is CEO, coach, author, and speaker, Claudio Chiste. It's great to have you here. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Zoe, for having me today.
You have a very impressive resume. If I look here, you served in the South African Navy for 9 years. You worked as a specialist bunker in London for 10 years, and you have 3 degrees under your belt. What would you say has these different experiences contributed to your leadership style?
I think primarily the military and corporate banking, given though I entered in 2007, which was the height of the subprime. That was when I was going in. And essentially it was a bloodbath at the time. I had friends teasing me saying, why are you ironing 5 shirts for the week? You're only going to get through 2 days in banking.
Sure.
But the banks that I entered into, namely Talent Bank, Teza, and Investec, South African in London, they actually outperformed the market. And I saw the characteristics that I gleaned from the military and also my South African upbringing. Being exposed to South African warrior leaders, we're all aware of Shaka Zulu and so forth. There's certain characteristics which is not always at the forefront of leadership literature, and I think that was a big factor.
And it's important to also realize that there are many leaders, even though they don't always get the spotlights that they deserve. When was that moment for you when you realized, okay, I actually want to get into more of a leadership role. This is something I'm passionate about. This is what sets my soul on fire.
I think I've always been interested in leadership, but what really was the so-called aha moment was when I was training in the military. I took the officer route as a combat officer, and that was all about leadership. And then in banking, I saw that things were not going according to plan in the world. And the more I looked, we saw that globalization with the impact of that, and also the information age and the VUCA, volatile, unstable, chaotic, and ambiguous. And there's a big debate of which age we're living in. And the view was, let the historians decide that in 100 years' time. Now let's just focus on what challenges does each age bring. Let's not worry about the definition, and let's focus on the challenges. And the leadership literature that I was looking at, they were too siloed. Everybody was pushing their model, and I saw patterns, that they all fit together and they all serve a purpose based on a context. But what was lacking was an African context. And the most important being Batopele, people first.
Okay.
And of course, Ubuntu, which we'll unpack.
Definitely. And then, you know, as a leader, it's important for you to be able to be in a great position to lead those below you. When things got tough, especially in the banking world, we know that was the big crash in 2008. How did you remain optimistic? How did you remain positive seeing all this data in front of you?
I think the first thing is having that vision and the belief in the vision. And often I see, when I work with the military and sports, I see as a way to motivate, very alpha male, almost, I don't want to say it, but gorilla beating on the chest. You've got to give 100%. And I always thought that was a little bit flawed, because it starts with belief. Mindfulness, meditation, just clearing that mind and believing, visualizing. And 100% commitment is a natural consequence. It doesn't need to be forced. Because if you force it, it's almost going to a motivational talk on the Friday, and then Monday you're back to normal. As soon as you get tired, you're going to give up, because you don't really believe in it. And I think that was the main thing, is engendering this belief in people and striving towards that everybody counts. No matter how junior you are, everybody plays a critical role. In the book, I talk about cogs, you know, on a watch, big cog, small cog. Even if the smallest cog doesn't operate, the watch doesn't work.
True.
So we're all important, and it's the level of responsibility which differs. And we all have the scope to go up in responsibilities, therefore the taking.
Oh, well, listen, we've got your book here on display. We've got more time to chat with you, so we want to unpack this more. But just quickly, what was the motivation behind writing your book, Rise of the Warrior Leader?
The main motivation was, I mentioned earlier about the patterns.
Yes.
And this proposes ownership-driven leadership. The leaders to inspire ownership, where you own the mission, you own whatever task, no matter how small. That's the good times, business as usual, so-called. But in a crisis, the leader takes the ownership to ensure safety in times of crisis or radical change or chaos. But that's on a continuum. So in the good times, the servant, the steward, and the tough times, to step into warrior mode. And I don't mean warrior as in the archetype of a spear, but what it represents, because warrior is the French word for warrier. It's fighting spirit, rather than the actual act of fighting.
Yeah.
So it's something for man, woman, anybody. And that was the main motivation, to unpack it and say it starts with ownership of self, because if you cannot hold your space for yourself, you cannot hold it for the collective.
I hear you.
Own the mission, and then own the result. Regardless of fail or fail badly, no backstabbing, own the result. And that was the main motivation, just to really simplify it conceptually so that people can apply it.
Oh, well, Claudio, thank you so much for joining us. We will be unpacking this more. So stay tuned to your Feel Good Breakfast show. We've got the author of the book here in front of you, Rise of the Warrior. That we will be unpacking, so stay tuned. It's my Feel Good Breakfast show. Welcome back. It is your Feel Good Breakfast show. It's Expresso, and we are back with CEO and author of Rise of the Warrior leader, Claudio Chiste. And earlier, we also spoke about his evolution as a leader and how he recognized the importance of mental resilience and accountability. October is also Mental Health Awareness Month, and we've been talking about it throughout the show. And just as much as we need to look after our mental health, so do leaders in any field. Well, let's find out more about his book, Rise of the Warrior Leader. And we also have one of our favorites, Sassy Bakes, joining us on the couch, as she was the official MC at the book launch. Firstly, Claudio, congratulations.
Thank you, Zoe.
How do you feel seeing your book in the physical copy in the stores?
I think the main thing is sense of completion, and this is just sort of, it hits home that it's complete, because it's almost 6 years that I was nurturing and curating. So this just tells me, yeah, the chapter is complete.
Chapter 1 of many. Well, I love the tagline. It says, own who you are, own the mission, own the results. Talk me through the tagline of the book.
So essentially, in the book, I define ownership with a capital O. So it's a new term, and this means that the first step is to own who you are. So things we hide, suppress, or deny, we don't show the world. Things we're not proud of, our shadow, is to own that. That's who we are. And we will never be perfect. Everything's got a shadow. If it doesn't have a shadow, it doesn't exist, as Carl Jung says, right? The trees have got a shadow, everything's got a shadow. But also embrace your gold, things you achieved, but not with arrogance, but with a sense of ownership, with groundedness. And the next thing is to own the mission. So have a goal, purpose, and to believe in that purpose and engender this belief in your people. And the third is to own the result. So that's essentially books about this ownership-driven leadership.
And it's important for accountability as well. Sassy, you were the MC at the official book launch. What was the highlight of the event for you?
It was just everything. I mean, I'm so proud of Claudio, and you know, everybody was just raving about the book and what an amazing read it is. And, you know, it appeals to everyone. I mean, like he says, it's not just specifically, you know, to males, it's for females as well. Anybody wants, even the people out there, anybody that wants to learn more about themselves or to become a leader. So everything, the whole event was just massively successful. So I'm very proud of him.
Incredible. Now, I know this coming weekend is a big weekend in the sporting world, especially for South Africans. We're supporting the Springboks against the All Blacks in the Rugby World Cup final. And there we have a leader, you know, playing, in fact, the entire team playing for our country. Have you seen any of the characteristics that you perhaps in the different pillars in your book spoken about represented in our captain or perhaps our national team?
Most certainly. When I talk about own the mission, there's 10 dimensions for unshakable steward leadership. And unshakable in the sense that the steward also needs to be a warrior. And these 10 dimensions can be seen through, let's call it a prism of 3 further. So you've got the ownership, and the self, and the result, and the mission. And that mission can be further seen as 3. The most important of that is authenticity, tapping into self, the true self. What is your intention? Is it selflessness? On the one extreme is selflessness, and the other is self-centered, self-serving. And out of the 10, that is the most important. Because I was never taught, in the military I had to learn the 10 principles of leadership, and if you had to ask me which is the most important, I wouldn't be able to tell you. But that's the most important. And the next, and that's Batopele, putting the people first, the heart.
And you've spoken about that.
To care. And the next is for people to see it. Because if you care, but everybody thinks you're a bad person, because fake news, or you've got people on social media canceling you, that's not very effective. Or perhaps you're not a good communicator. And that's essentially Ubuntu. Because although Ubuntu is, I am because we are. Ubuntu nogubantu nogubantu, as you say. But the late Bishop Tutu said that's a mere component of Ubuntu. What it really is the same as the Indians' Namaste. The higher self in me greets the higher self in you. Ubuntu. The humanity in me greets the humanity in you. And I look into your eyes. What is humanity? It's you care, connection. Humility is only that strand, but it's so vast. And the CEO of the Tutu Foundation recently reminded me of that. But the third is it needs to be towards a goal, which in Zulu you call injongo. There needs to be a result. There's no point in doing all this for popularity and razzmatazz and music, and then the fanfare's over, and then our lives have not changed. So those 3, and everything, if you look around, the pattern fits into those 3. So going back to your question on the Springboks, the core is the selflessness. It's for the nation. It gives hope. And we saw the documentary, I'm sure we all saw, with the coach, and it's not about you. Put your ego aside. If you get it wrong, it's the nation. The next Ubuntu, do we see the humanity? Well, we've also seen the captain, Siya Kolisi, right? And about grassroots, going from the townships, and then making it to the main stage aloft with the cup. So we can see, and people can resonate, because it's humanity. Hey, I can also achieve. And then the third one, Injongo, does it hit the target? Most certainly does, because we see that the joy brings people the hope, and that gives people a fuel and injection to achieve more and overcome. And that also ties in with the warrior theme. And it's not just from the rugby, it goes back even further. SS Mendi, you're familiar with the ship, it's the worst maritime disaster in South Africa. 646 people perished, mostly black South Africans. And the Reverend Isaac de Yoba, World War I, 1917. And Isaac de Yoba was the Reverend. He mustered the men. And he said, be calm and quiet, my brothers, because we are in what is about to unfold is what you've come here to do. We're all going to die. But that's what you've come here to do. Pick up your imaginary spears. And they all picked up their imaginary spears. They did the gumboot dance. As the ship went down, they did the dance of drill. Dance of death, correction. Oh. And they all drowned. And today, the highest medal for bravery in South Africa, which the president can award you, is the Mendi Medal of Bravery. Okay. So that's in our DNA, you can say. Yeah. So going back to the Springboks, to wrap this up, is that we saw against England. Most of us, if we're honest, we thought we were going to lose.
Oh, we did.
But there was that fighting spirit.
That fighting spirit was there. Yeah.
There you go.
Well, Claudio, thank you for joining us. Sassy, thank you for being here. And remember to get your copy of The Warrior. In fact, this is The Rise of the Warrior Leader. This is on your screen right now. You can get it at select bookstores or online. And we just want to thank Claudio once again for joining us today, and Sassy for being here. Thank you. And of course, grab your copy.